name's Shaggy Philalitheia, and I'm playing Metaphor Refantasio for personal reasons. I just felt like playing it. I'm not recording it anywhere. I'm just playing, enjoying my time spent. Not something I do very frequently. Still nauseous, still lightheaded, still hurting all over. But the gas, the worst of the pain are finally starting to fade. So maybe soon when I lie down, I won't have just horrible pain radiating throughout my torso. Ah, jeez. Eyes itch. I might put on some music and play with my finger drum. I might not. I made half. I made about as much as I thought I was going to make, as much as I budgeted to make. I made half of the cost of my music equipment. So, hey, Eric. So that's cool. This month we added another $100 to my Patreon income. I made $10 yesterday before YouTube's cut. Now I don't get that until the 21st. So we still got things we're trying to do. It's weird to me. It's weird to me. I'm not calling you weird, Chicken Nugget. Heard that. I'm not calling you weird. But like live streams, right? So like cam porn. I never understood the people who show up with no money in their pocket. Like you're gonna show up genitals in hand, no money in pocket. Why? I never had money to give, so I never showed up. But then you can just study the stuff that's stolen, and the girls are not doing anything if you're not tipping. So what are you really stealing? Proximity to an attractive person? It's very strange. I'm sure it's from television. I'm sure that you're conditioned from television and not cam porn. But also, it's like I am thinking on some level about like the subscription services and how much you don't like the subscription services. I have no issue paying a subscription for a service that I'm only going to want to use some of the time. Don't pay for it when you don't want to use it. And think of your subscription as access for that month that you want to use it. Like $15 a month for World of Warcraft is 50 cents a day. I think I can manage making 50 cents a day. Just as an example. But it's like you pay a cable company $125 a month for access to television, but you don't want all of the channels. So you just want the Disney affiliated channels, ABC, the Disney channels, ESPN, their documentaries, and their version of the film channel, whatever it's called, FML. Films and Movies Losers. That'd be the name of my cable channel. FML. Films and Movies Losers. Anyway. Um, so you pay Disney $7 a month, and then it turns out that they start making original content on that, and that too few people are remaining subscribed between the content that is super popular, but they're still making original content. So they have to raise their prices. And so you bounce. That's how it works. The subscription model works. It makes sense. And the prices always go up. If you don't set it and forget it early, price always goes up. They can't leave the price, the low price, forever. Not for everyone. They're trying to make a profit and they have a product they're trying to sell. I think a lot of people think that like Netflix, HBO Max, Disney Plus, that I think that they thought that when they were going to the apps, as people think of it, when they were going to their subscription model, when really what they did was went directly to you instead of selling through a middleman, your cable provider. I think they thought that what they were paying for was access to the app, and then that the new original content that was being made to keep them on it was made for free. I think that people think that television is made for free, that just because it's made available to them for free, that it also costs no money to make, and that the actors get paid for free, and that the money just comes from nowhere. But the money doesn't come from nowhere. The money comes from ad revenue deals. And so, in that same way, like nothing in the internet is actually free. Nothing's free. It's all ad revenue. The website, the YouTube channel, whatever it is, Twitter itself can't exist if there is a growing population of people watching the ads on the platform. And so, if you want to not have to experience ads and you want to see continued growth on the platform, you have to pay the subscription model. You don't have a choice. I'm not trying to retain any of these people who are scrolling through. None of you chuckle fucks is interesting enough to me to get me to stop talking about what I'm talking about. And if, like I say, you want to change or influence the conversation, you spend money. It's like if you want to see her tits or you want to see her turn around so you can look at it from the back, you gotta help her hit her financial goals. So I am just deeply unconcerned with hurting the feelings of the internet. The internet is here to hurt my feelings. I think there are a lot of people who think that they're just scrolling trying to put a smile on somebody's face and they don't realize that they're the reason that somebody's not smiling. And it is what it is. But it's like if I'm going to draw from my personal life, um, if I'm going to draw from my personal life, from my creative life, I just spent the last several hours, 3 hours, talking with a friend about the game Forever Winter. And it's like as I was listening to him talk about it, I kept getting the sense that this game is working against itself. That its systems and its intentions are working at cross purposes. And so you can be working at cross purposes, right? You have all the good intentions in the world and still be working against yourself. It's like doing Christian charity is working against yourself, you know? But I sure as fuck know that you guys don't come live to listen to me talk. You don't come live to listen to me talk, and I'm too attractive to retain your attention for anything other than softcore pornography. If I were ugly, fat, or female, you would sit and listen to me talk and 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 talk, and you would be impressed. But because I'm a moderately attractive white male who um, evidently has high intelligence, you turn away because you've been conditioned that people like me are smart enough to condition you to do what we, people like me, want. And so you just work against yourself forever because that's what people like me have wanted in the past. And you just have no idea that you're giving the powers that be what they want by saying, I'm not going to do what's good for me. It is what it is. I don't have any I don't have any central chat that I want to get to. And I may or may not feel like singing or listening to music. I may or may not feel like playing on my finger drum. But I know that learning that finger drum and getting used to it and then actually being kind of competent for a few seconds at a time isn't going to impress anyone. The person it might impress is impressed with everything I do because she's only ever dated losers. when everybody you know, when the standard that you know is just being a rank loser, watching self-improvement's just boring. Self-improvement is the slow work. It's the quiet work when no one's looking. C'est la vie. 0 and 0. Hmm. Shit, Eric. Already been live 17 minutes, so any any algorithmic bump that I was gonna get, I did not get. Because I didn't get any likes in that span. You see? See, what you can't do is you can't go live and say that the problem with the world is that the lowest common denominator is too low. Because if you do that, you're speaking to the lowest common denominator as though they're peers from your raised platform. And they don't like that. Mm. I know I'm gonna have another bowl. Oh. That pressure on my pelvis is almost let up. Oh man. That's too cold. There we go. I still miss Dagger's gameplay. Shit. You what? I am damn miserable. I feel fucking horrible. Oh. Man, I can't decide whether I'm gonna puke or not. Hey, thank you for that like. Shit, Eric. Why you shitting at me? Why you giving me your shit? Huh? Diggity, diggity. Ooh, I like to play as Catherine Medici. I never use her thing, but she's fun to play as. A free spy! Plus 20% production toward medieval Renaissance and industrial era wonders. Tourism from wonders of any era is 100%. You just talking shit now? What are you talking shit for? You trying to get hit? You trying to fight me, Eric? Today's a nap kind of day? Maybe? I'm probably going to have to take a midday nap. I went to bed fairly early for me. Went to bed at midnight and I was up around 6. So maybe I take a nap and go to bed around midnight again. Oh yeah. Naturally plates this way. Dig it, 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 dig it. I think I really got that. Yeah. Hey. Need to trim up the neck beard. Just bring that up to the same length as the chin. Just right off right there. Civ 9 hasn't been released yet. Civ 7 is a pile of garbage and I'm done with it. And you just missed that chronicle by not being here or tuning in to the recordings, pal. I'm playing Civ 6. Oh. Civ 7 is just not fun. You don't like CNC3? They regressed for 3? Do you know why? No, that's not why. This was 2007, 2008. This is a long time before games as services games. Red Alert 3 and Command and Conquer 3. But esports, yes, they flattened the games out for esports to compete with StarCraft, Warcraft 3, and Dota. Not games as services. No, it doesn't have DLC and extra content like that yet. It doesn't have skins and stuff, but they flattened the games out for online competitive matchmaking, um, which is something that was happening around 2007. But the reason that Command and Conquer 3 isn't as good as Command and Conquer 2 is because Command and Conquer 2 is on an isometric two-dimensional map, and Command and Conquer 3 is on a three-dimensional map, and the pathfinding didn't work in the water. So it's built with the same engine as the Middle Earth game from around 2005. There was a Middle Earth RTS game that they made, and then they reskinned it for Command and Conquer 3, and they couldn't get the naval pathfinding to work. So they just cut it from the game. And then in RA3, they overcorrected and made most of the game amphibious. So the maps became competitively irrelevant. So they had to scale the maps down and make them smaller. That's a complaint. Well, it's a complaint people had in 2007, Eric. You're just 20 years behind the conversation. Maybe if you had dropped a dime on it and had been involved in the conversation at the time, there would have been a Command and Conquer 4 that fixed the issues. But that genre died. And then the next StarCraft came out, and it got the competitive matchmaking right. And so that's just the genre. The genre is Star Trek, not Star Trek, StarCraft. Nice. Sure. That's kind of where I fall down on Final Fantasy. It's like I'm glad I got to see 6. I'm glad I was there for 6 because I'm not glad I was there to watch it fall into disarray. Sure. It was visually spectacular for sure. What are these starts? Starting with no production. How am I supposed to survive? Yeah, the gardens were cool. They were a cool idea. Yes, the set pieces were definitely spectacular. Yes, the rocket motorcycles. It's like they ask themselves, what would Eric think is super cool? Ultimisha was a time witch. I don't know if hmm, I don't know if I would call her a time witch. Her magic wasn't time magic. She was just somehow able to interact with specific people from the past. Because Elena was able, well, yeah, she was their, you know, matron. She was the headmistress of the orphanage. The orphanage they were raised in because they were all little war refugees. Mm. It comes and goes in waves. I don't remember that. Oh, you mean when he defeated when he defeats Odin? Yeah, if you have Odin when you go into that fight, he defeats Odin. I know what you're talking about. That was bananas. Very shocking to us all as kids, I'm sure. Eight's not goated. Six is goated, but eight is very good. I feel like eight is more powerful if you're familiar with six. 10 was never Dookie. I don't know what you mean. 10 is an all-time great and an undisputed masterpiece. Hi, Rachie. You think 8 was better in any ways than 10? How, in what ways do you think 8 was better? Well, they gave us Blitzball. Card games in 9. I don't think Blitzball is janky. I think Blitzball is a lot more fun and visually stimulating than the card game. Well, sure, but they gave you the Monster Hunter in the Monster Arena instead of the card refining. They didn't tie making your characters better to a completely unrelated minigame. Heading home? Heard that. Rachie, please drive safe. Dunko, 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 dunko. I would prefer not, Rachie. The vet bills alone gonna put us in a tent. I'm in no shape to be in a tent for any amount of time in my life anymore. It's very difficult to make ice from a tent. Do they, Eric? Holy sites adjacent to rivers. You waited too long. If you're going to be aggressive, you needed to do it already. I could be able to win the war against me now. Yeah, that's how I feel. Holy shit, I'm not gonna run across a natural wonder either. I'm playing Civ 6, Richie Reach. Things aren't going well yet. I haven't got a good start. In fact, this is a shit start too. Better, better, bam, 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 bam. I am playing on myself. Bam, 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 bam. Trying to get stoned. Trying to get this pressure off my pelvis. I had a good conversation with the Patreon producer this morning, though. I was listening to him. I don't know if it's because he listens to me so much, but I was listening to him. I just listening to him talk about Forever Winter, and I figured it out. I figured it out, and that's why I have at any given moment one person at the channel, right? I figured it out. Oh, he's got it all figured out. I do. I've got it figured out. You see, there's a conspiracy against us. And a conspiracy to commit fraud is a conspiracy to cause to commit a crime, to conspiring against anyone to fraudulently present them anything. Yeah, I got to hang out with Mr. S for a few hours. Yes. Oh. Beep, 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 beep. I was listening to him talk about Forever Winter, and I was asking him the same kind of empathizing questions that I always ask. And that game is plagued by the same hardcore that have plagued everything since Command and Conquer 3 was going wrong. People who don't know what they want in a gameplay. People who don't know what they want but who recognize the symptoms of when a community has died because the people playing it are the wrong people who don't know anything about what they want, so they just went to a game. They don't know what they want. And they certainly don't know what they want the game to be, and they don't know how to listen when the developer tells them what the game is and what it's not, and what they're doing with their design choices, because all these early access games have to do that. When you buy an early access game, you're an investor in a small business. You're not just buying a product. You're buying the privilege to be in the alpha test market. Typically, the way it's supposed to go, and you can ask any Russian this, you can ask any Estonian this, you can ask any alpha reader. There are professional alpha readers, and they are bad at their jobs. Just absolutely terrible at their jobs, because alpha readers don't know what editors and publishers are reading for. Alpha readers think that they're professional tastemakers. Alpha readers are paid at about the same rate as editors. In video games, you pay for the privilege to alpha test, to alpha read, to alpha play. You pay for the privilege. And the reason that is because the development team have hit a financial wall where they can no longer afford to play test it in-house. Every game hits this wall. Every game has always hit this wall. The difference between this wall in 2026 and this wall in 1984, just pick 2 years, is that when we were on an entirely hardware-based setup, where you're talking about cartridges, or you're talking about discs, right? You're talking about hardware that they have to make and ship in order for you to play the game. When they run out of money, the only way to get money is to ship the game. And so the sequel is finished. And the sequel to that is more of the finished product. And you arrive at Super Mario Brothers, Castlevania, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest. Are there any PC franchises that still exist that aren't Japanese? Because the way the PC did it, still does it, but the way the PC did it was the way Bethesda does it now. They just relied on their modding community. Well, when you buy an alpha game, what you sure as fuck are not going to do is fix it for them. There are people who mod things like 7 Days to Die, for sure, but those people are paid for their mods. Because they're fixing the game. Fallout. Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas aren't beloved because of the games that you get in the box. They're beloved because of the modding community available on the PC and probably Xbox. That's why they're beloved. And so I think what it is I think that indie developers don't realize how much time and energy is actually going to go into making a fully realized 3D game. I think they think, oh, I can just buy the texture packs and the skins and the yada 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 and bang a bang a bang. And then what they do is they end up getting really good at customizing the things that they've bought, right? So you buy a character model skin, a male and a female, and then you get good at customizing those. But that skill set is the same skill set that one develops by playing one of these hyper customizable RPGs circa the time that these people who are developing games now would have been playing games 2012, 2015, all had hyper customizable characters, personalizable, and that's you could tell picking up certain games, Bethesda games, certain BioWare games. You could tell that the time, the money, and the attention to detail were spent on the character models. Nothing wrong with that. But what that means is that the things that actually need time, attention to detail, and frankly, skill, like the actual coding language, get pushed off, pushed off, pushed off, pushed off, pushed off, because that's hard work. And so what we arrive at is companies that run out of money because they've been kicking that can down the road for so long that the only way they know how to make money is to sell us skins. Path of Exiles, Path of Exile 2. It's not the games as services that make it trash, that make it sloppy. It's that these game developers aren't really hackers anymore. They think they are because they spend so much time online talking about all the hacking they're doing. But every keystroke that you spend talking on Reddit about how much of a hacker you are is in fact a keystroke that a real hacker is using hacking. If you're not married to the work, you don't get to identify by it. And so what we have is a class of middle class, actually, frankly, they're no class, middle income bureaucrats who are selling us unfinished, barely even begun products, and they don't know how to finish them because they quite literally don't know how. The idea men from the 80s who made all those great games that you love, they don't remember how to make a game. They don't remember why they made the things that they did. They don't know why they use the design choices they did. So when they go back and play their games, it is quite literally for the first time. And because of their either lack of note taking or their actual paucity of reliable note taking and experience and learning and self education and personal development along the way to finishing these games that they made, They don't remember. They don't know. The Witcher 3, I'm sorry, The Witcher 4 and Cyberpunk 2077 are both in development hell. 2077 went into development hell. And now the sequel and The Witcher 4 are both in development hell. Meanwhile, the remake of The Witcher 1, a game that you would think that they knew how to make because they made it, is also in development hell because they didn't take notes. They didn't take any notes along the way. They don't remember how to make their own games. There isn't a Studio Project Red style of making games, method of solve design problems that they use, otherwise known, by the way, as a philosophy, that they use to solve every problem every time. And because they don't have a cohesive design philosophy, everything they make goes directly into development hell. And it's their own fault. It's all of their own faults. There is a reason that even every basic gas station in this country keeps copious records, not notes, records of everything and everything it does and every decision it makes. There's a reason, and that reason is so it can remember. Damn. Like, there's a reason that the Steelers remain the Steelers year after year after year after year, and it has nothing to do with Mike Tomlin. It has everything to do with the consistent messaging coming from the top. The design philosophy with which the team is constructed, from the general manager stroke head coach down. But that is just not how video games are made. It's just not how they're made. And so the further away from the 1980s we get, the further away from games that are made with pure love by natural hackers we are in fact going to drift. Because making games for the pure love of gameplay and exploring the digital space, exploring what this technology can do, telling the same old stories that everybody is already familiar with because everybody grew up on comic books at the same time. Everybody was reading the same popular novels. Everybody was watching the same popular TV shows. And so the video games don't need to be different. All they need to be is interactive. They need to be a game for children that adults can shut their brains off and enjoy. Like Mancala. Just like the game Mancala, which is the first board game of which we're aware. And you know what? It spread all over the Eurasian and North African landmasses. Everywhere from the Sahara Desert to Japan had that game. Gaming is as human as bestiality, frankly. And we are doing ourselves a disservice by making it a corporate product. Because you know what they're going to start putting in every game? Because Baldur's Gate 3 had it? Outright bestiality. They were still a novelty. They tried harder. But see, do you remember, Rachel? Do you remember the insult that was being a try hard in the 90s? Can you sense the undercurrent of my argument as regards natural fits? Can you recognize the core of that argument? It's a genuine question. In the 90s, we figured out that there's a difference between making an effort and having to try too hard. Video games are trying too hard at the wrong things. And that's why we called dudes and dudettes who tried too hard at the wrong things tryhards. You sure are a tryhard, and we didn't let tryhards come around because they're annoying. And so I think, this is what I think. I think that movies around 2005 started positioning nerds not as the people to be made fun of, but as civilization's true winners. And I think that in so doing, a bunch of people try-harded being nerds. I think a bunch of people put on Coke bottle glasses and Mary Jane's. I'm not trying to throw her under the bus, but my ex-girlfriend, she was my best friend in high school, Megan. She didn't know, she had that same anxiety that I one of my Patreon subscribers has. That she never knew what she wanted to do. Anytime a guidance counselor asked her what she wanted to do, what she knew that she didn't want to do was be told what to do. But she also didn't want to think about it because she's just a girl. And so she was offered this full ride scholarship. She was offered this full ride scholarship into basically information technology because she was a female. And I asked her, why are you taking that? And she goes, because it's free. They're going to give me a free education to learn how to code. And I'm like, yeah, but why are you taking that? And she goes, because I'm a girl and it's a free education. And I'm like, right, but that's for girls. That's an education for poor girls who are actually interested in STEM. Your parents can pay for your education. You don't know what you want to do with your life. Why are you taking money for an education that you don't want and don't plan to use? And so you know what she fell on? You know what she decided to do? She decided to follow my career path. She got into psychology, something else that she was temperamentally unsuited for. Because she temperamentally was a tryhard. Not that different from I didn't do it. I didn't do it is also a tryhard. He has to try really hard to earn his daddy's overly sexual affection. And so I am of the opinion that middle class bureaucrats do not in fact deserve our empathy or our humanization. They don't deserve it because they aren't empathetic creatures and they aren't human in their behavior. They're robots, they're zombies, they're empty, and what they're replaced with is black magic monsters. And so you don't have to believe in black magic, but I do. And I'm here to tell you that the middle class is full of a bunch of black magic demon-infested monsters, zombies, and horrors from beyond the grave. You don't have to like the metaphor because I'm talking about you. If you're a bureaucrat, if you work a desk job, if you crunch numbers, if you tell other people what to do with their time but don't have anything particular to do with yours, you are the Night of the Living Dead. You are just a pawn of the great evil that I call the powers that be. The true powers at work on this world, whatever or whoever they be, you are just working for them for free. You're just an empty, mindless slave puppet. And you don't deserve empathy. People like I was watching this YouTube short yesterday that was trying to figure out why Edward Scissorhands, director, isn't good anymore. And then he goes, I just had to look myself in the face and realize that he was never good. He was always a studio director. And it's like, yeah, that's the conclusion you should have come to years ago. Years ago. You should have come to that conclusion the first time you saw him make a studio movie. Oh, he's just a studio director. Bingo. Your record is who you are. I don't care if you don't like Bill Parcells. We used to say about our elected officials that their voting record was who they were. We no longer say this. And they get away with fucking babies. There was a time in American history between 1950 and 2000, 2009 when people did things for the love because there was enough money in the economy that they could do things for the love of it. But that time is over because of the 2008 market crash. The war on poverty that began in the 1970s was not a war on people being poor, it was a war on people escaping poverty. It was a war on the actual poor. And so what happened is between 1933, give or take, and 1969, too many American families, including Jewish, Latino, and Black populations, had escaped poverty. As such, the United States had too large a consumer class to make sense. So what they did is they broke off of the gold standard. And breaking off of the gold standard, they went to a fiat currency that allowed them to extend federally insured loans to everyone, even these formerly unprotected minorities, Blacks, Latinos, Jews, broadly. Asians were more protected because Asians assimilated faster. Muslims were never openly tolerated and made outright illegal by the Patriot Act. If you read, and I have read it on the Patreon, if you read the Monroe Doctrine, from which the Trump-Roe Doctrine, by the way, was adapted, the current presidency's doctrine, philosophy, you know that presidents write a doctrine, that presidents present to the government a doctrine. A doctrine is something that's been written down, right? That's a philosophy. They present a philosophy. This is how the government is going to be run from the top down. And if you don't like it, you can join the burial pits of Ur. That's how it works. And that's how it's always worked. The president stands up in front of the Congress and says, this is how we're running the fucking show. It's called a doctrine. Monroe's doctrine, Trump calls his the Trump-Roe Doctrine. The Trump-Roe Doctrine, the Monroe Doctrine, rather, explicitly said that we are friendly with Britain and France, contingent that they don't fuck around with our trade routes or dick around with our banks. We are not friendly with Russia, and that we are openly hostile with Islam. Nothing changed. What changed is that the middle class was suddenly the poor class, the poverty class. You know that in the United States, you have to make minimum $120,000 not to be living in poverty, right? The middle class begins at $250,000 a year. And so what happened is in the 90s, because of the tech bubbles and the housing bubbles and other economic bubbles that all burst at the same time with the housing market that no one talks about, because of these booms like the tech boom, a shitload of people were suddenly bankrupt because they had been living on credit card debt and imaginary money for decades, since 1969. And suddenly they're bankrupt. And so what happened is a bunch of get rich quick and financial advisors ran around the world telling people that they needed what I'm always talking about: multiple revenue streams. The problem is that nobody can generate multiple revenue streams. They do one thing that generates money by accident, and then they just keep churning out garbage content that strips them of their soul, their dignity, and their humanity, and then they kill themselves blaming us. And so what happened is we started getting off on it. And now we encourage them to do it for the toxic monkeys that we are. These same toxic monkeys that show up in my chat, show up in my comments, say things to Rachel like she's nothing or she's no one, or that men need to remain single in a woman's chat. These same people encouraged holocausts. They encouraged genocide. Why? Because they're stupid enough to believe that the other person's government is, in fact, evil and concerned with them. I hear people come around the channel all the time and talk about how some foreign government is concerned with what they're doing. English speaking people from the UK. Oh, France is concerned with how I brush my teeth. France doesn't give a shit about you, the UK. Some French guy doesn't give a fuck. You're just stupid enough to believe what your government says to you. Your government is lying because your government needs you to keep paying taxes so they can keep brushing their teeth with your sister's pubes. But my sister's only 9. No fucking shit! Why do you think they got government jobs? So they can't be prosecuted. God damn. Grow the fuck up. You're not 9 anymore. Not actually. And shit, 3rd grade is age to 8 anyway. I see it. I see it. The people scroll through, they see a guy talking in the middle of something, making good points, talking about them, looking at them, being eloquent, has a good looking face, and they go, I should scroll back to the beginning of this. I bet it's interesting. Go fuck yourselves. All of you. You don't even have a YouTube channel. You don't even have a primary revenue stream. You have a job. Fuck off. Revenue streams make themselves, by the way. Streams and rivers are evidently sourced from nowhere. They just make themselves. You might have an income, that's not a revenue stream. The money has to come to you before you get to condescend to anyone about how they're making their money and how much of their money they're making and how valuable they are as people. Upper class society had to pretend like it wasn't in bankruptcy, Rachel. And so everyone started buying businesses and developing businesses, like in that show you're watching, that 3 Body Problem, where everybody's sitting around patting themselves on businesses that generate revenue that they don't love doing. They had to make an income because mommy and daddy kicked them out because they're garbage people. They're useless. They add no value to the world, and they take away others so that the lack of value that they bring to the table isn't noticed. This is why video games suck. This is why there is a clear pattern of declination and quality across the world. But the people to blame and the people who deserve to be punished with a decrease in value across the world are the consumer class. It is the consumers who are at fault. If you weren't spending your money on garbage, A, less of it would be made, and B, you'd have more of it to spend on assets. But every basic Wall Street trader knows this. You want assets, not commodities. And if you have commodities, you need to move off them at a profit. You need to buy them while they're cheap, and you need to move off them while people want them. So if you're going to buy video games, it only makes sense to play them live as soon as you buy them, from the moment you bought it. Anything less is not recouping the value. There is no value in pleasure. Pleasure is a sunk cost, lost the moment you nut. It's basic math. But you're going to tell me that if you buy a T-shirt for $1 and then you spend $7 to store the T-shirt in 3 different places, and then you charge $3, that you've made $9. It's like, nope. You just spent $6 on credit that you now owe interest on. Do you own the warehouses? That's overhead. Do you not? Then they're not charging you a fair price. You didn't make $3. You didn't make $9. You might have just lost $1. I'm in a shitty mood too, Rachel. I said it already. I'm done. I'm done playing nice with these chuckle fucks. I'm done. I'm done empathizing with people who don't deserve it. I'm most certainly done with empathizing with people who don't know how to do it, but expect it on credit. That's called privilege. It is not your privilege to be respected. It is not your privilege to be spoken to like a baby. It is not your privilege to have what you want at all times to the detriment of the people around you. That is not your privilege. Certainly, it is not on the internet. It might be in your home. It might be in your country, but it is most certainly not on the internet. You're just a bunch of dumb dummies. Don't know nothing about nothing. And then want to stand up and talk about how, oh, this game needs to have this, or it needs to have that. Or, oh man, this is goated. Oh, everything's goated. Everything is the greatest of all time. How long do you think time is? And do you think your video game that's goated is going to be played rather than chess in 100 years. If your developer didn't make the next chess, then your developer is still a work in progress, and you need to sit the fuck down about greatest of all time. Forever. Shut your fucking mouth. You don't know enough about all time to be talking about greatness in this moment. You don't know enough about what's available now to even say this is the best thing on the market. Because I'll tell you right now, scrolling through PlayStation Plus, you pay $17 a month and you can play some actually great games entirely for free, and it doesn't even take hard drive space. All you have to do is be willing to recognize that all time encompasses the PlayStation 1 too. It means the things from before your awareness as well. I'm disgusted. I'm just disgusted by this recurring pattern in human behavior to wait 1,000 years for somebody to step up and say no for you. Oh, we need Moses to save us from the Pharaoh not feeding us well enough. Okay. There are no amount of threats about what would happen to me in my afterlife that would keep me from just taking the food that I need to survive. Maybe I was Spartacus in another life, but there's just absolutely no way. Not the person that I am today. Maybe I would have had to have been an entirely different, cowed and empty person. And maybe I've just lived with the regret of that for thousands of years. Yeah, to these dummies, time began sometime around 2012, 2006. The dummies of my generation think that time began in 2006. They don't even accurately remember 9/11, and they sure as fuck don't remember the Gulf Wars. No memory, no awareness. All they remember is glad handedly patting themselves on the back that they weren't as dumb as George W. Bush. Well, W was smart enough to get elected president of the United States. You didn't even graduate with a 4.0 GPA. So, who do you think you are again? I assure you, it's fucking nobody. Time began whenever it's relevant to their short. I saw this guy on TikTok the other day complaining that men and women on TikTok are pretending to be workout fitness instructors, but really all they're doing is showing the sexually attractive parts of their body that look better because they're working out. I just left a comment like, this guy doesn't know that gym culture is gay culture, and that the only women who were going to those were prostitutes. Like, y'all don't know that the only men that prostitutes hang out with is gay dudes, and the only women that gay men hang out with is prostitutes. Like, y'all don't know this, but this has been the case for thousands of years. Those classes of people were relegated to hanging out with one another because nobody wants them around. I was talking with Mr. S about this just today. Individual gay people, they're great. From my perspective, any individual gay dude is easy head that I don't really even have to ask for. But that's why straight women don't want them around. This was a big argument when I was in high school. I graduated 2005. Gay marriage was sometime 2006 or 7. Y'all think that time began right then because it's very convenient to believe that people didn't have good reasons to do the things they did in the past. Oh, we want our sweeping change. Now we're just going to pretend like there weren't good reasons that the thing was existed before, and we're just going to continue our sweeping change as though there weren't good reasons to not do this. And then we're going to start cutting the genitals off of young boys because perverts prefer it that way. And then parents will go, I've never heard of this. I didn't know. And it's like, well, it was in The Godfather. Genital mutilating surgeries for insecure middle class men. That's in The Godfather. Every villain in every 1980s movie likes to diddle kids. And so what, you just thought you were the only person watching that porn? Come on. Grow up. Contextualize that there are only 7 personality types. So if there are 7 billion of us, that means that there are 1 billion people on average doing the exact same thing that you are doing at any given moment. If you think you're original, think again. You're not even true to yourself, let alone true to some idiosyncratic God that's never seen expression in the human form again. All of that shit happened 5,000, 7,000 years ago. True idiosyncratic human expression? That shit happened when we were still talking to animals. Grow up. Contextualize your fantasies with history and stop having them. Move out of mom and dad's basement. They don't even like you. And of course, I'm talking to firstborns. If you're the lastborn, stay with mom and dad. They had you so that someone would stay. Someone's got to take care of the homestead. They got to give it to somebody. You can't spend 70 years, 80 years building a life just to give it to the wind when you die. Why did you do anything? Like Shatner asked, what was it all for? Why did I even bother? See, y'all, the scrollers, the passers-by, the strangers who want to judge me with your wandering eyes, you all make me ask the same thing. What was all of it even for? You people who come by and go, oh, I missed the tent. What was it even for? What was it even for? Was that all there was? But see, if you think that way, Lonk and Mr. S and Rach and Som and the people who stuck with you, right? Those people are going to think you're asking, what were they all for? Was it not for me? Of course it was for you guys. The question still remains. The answer is evident, right? But that doesn't mean that the question doesn't remain. The question always remains, right? What is gravity? Well, we have a pretty decent answer. That doesn't mean it's the only answer. It doesn't mean it's the right answer. It's just the evident answer. I have been arguing this for so long, man. I don't like just being satisfied with the evident answer. The evident answer is usually wrong. Now, fine. When it comes to like football journalism, yeah, the evident answer seems to usually be the right answer. For like the first 15 years after the story breaks. But then it turns out that, nah, there was something hidden below the evident answer. Like, right now, the evident answer for why A.J. Brown had to go from the Eagles seems to be that he and a defensive player were fucking the same girl, and Jalen Hurts, quarterback, wouldn't tell the defensive player to stop fucking her. And it's like, or A.J. Brown, you can stop being a nasty bitch and maybe fuck one girl who's gonna not Eskimo brother you with your teammates like a nasty whore would do. Maybe we could have some class that goes along with the millions of dollars that we're making as an employee. And so, yeah, that guy needs to get the fuck out of the building. A, S, A, and also P. Because that's called cancer. But so does the guy who was fucking his girlfriend. He needs to be on another team. Both of them, frankly, need to be unemployed. That's classless behavior. You're doing that in a corporate environment, and you need to be permanently unemployed. So doing it in the NFL environment means you need to just be unemployed. And so trading you to a garbage team like the Patriots is how you eventually do wind up unemployed. Because they're going to give you the rope necessary to hang yourself, Stephon Diggs. Enjoy mediocrity, bud. Obscurity on some small market team. I don't even remember where they moved him to, but I know he's not going to a contender. The point remains, we could have some class. We make millions of dollars a month, or millions of dollars a year. Yeah, why rebuild this Fortune 500 company's department from nothing? Why did I spend so much time organizing and reorganizing those coolers and those freezers? Why? To what end? They didn't stay organized because there was no corporate or company philosophy underscoring excellence and rewarding excellence in all of its forms. No. What they did and what they do is they exploit excellence. Exploit it. And so all these people who play with their video game exploits thinking that they're fucking so great because they get to take the easy way through the video game. You are cancer. And you are spreading. You are the flu. You are COVID. And sure, a lot of people don't die every year from COVID and the flu and cancer. But all of that shit is preventable with lifestyle choices that can change. You are a preventable and changeable lifestyle choice. All cellophane, keeping up appearances, and fake news. Yep. All of the newest news in science. All of it. Fake news. Oh, we just found the next advancement in science. It turns out that 1 + 1 is still 1. I mean 2. 1 + 1 still remains 2. No shit, science. We've known that for hundreds of thousands of years, you assholes. Mind blown. Gravity causes things to clump together. Our minds are blown. No shit, we've known that, you assholes. Plato describes gravity. Plato describes special relativity. Einstein was fucking nobody, and he didn't even do the fucking math. I'm so fucking sick of this. I'm sick of everything being a fucking con from some middle-class dickhead who then steals from the Jewish community. I'm fucking sick of it. And so I'm going to sit down for it and play Civ 6 and just kind of rant about it until something fucking changes, because I am fucking nobody. In order to make the kind of sweeping changes that I want to see, I have to get elected to an exceedingly higher office than the state that I am in. You might know that Ron DeSantis isn't exactly changing the way of life in California. There's never a wizard behind the curtain. It's always a troll. And he's always a fucking pervert. Well, I'm just a nice guy. Yeah, you're a real nice guy. Get your dick out of that child. Always. Who that is? Hey, Richie. Whew. Don't shake around like that. That hurt. Oh. How are you?
I'm okay.
I have the worst headache. Just
You have the worst what with you?
headache.
Alright, well, let's get some protein in you so you can take some Advil.
That absolutely pounding migraine. Thank you, sweetheart. And that's how I feel about that. Pretty much all I got to say on that subject. I don't even remember what I've been talking about. I'm trying to learn how Hebrew formed neologisms out of the pictographs. I'm certain you guys don't care. The Vav, which is an I, began life as an origin. It began life as the picture for a tent peg. Oh, cool. So the tent peg, the word vav. I'm gonna teach you some Hebrew. The word vav was a tent peg, and then they moved. They were actually brought into Egypt either as refugees or as prisoners of war. They were brought into Egypt, and Egypt had hooks and clasps and all kinds of different fasteners that they didn't have. So the word vav also just became the word tent peg. Also just became the word that meant tent peg. Effectively, it was assigned to tent pegs. Was used for all connectors and clasps, and then it just became their word for and. So when you say this and that, you say this tent peg that. Vav. And then the same thing for the resh, which means head. It started as a drawing of a human head, but as their military hierarchies grew in complexity, the picture of a head naturally birthed the neologism for a military captain or chief, the rosh. So when I said that these languages were not complex at all, we're talking about they have words for the very basic things that they talk about, and then trying to explain the leader of an army, they couldn't say leader of the army. They could say head of war group, head war group head. Like if you know how the Hawaiian language is, if you know how it works, you know a little bit closer to how these deeply ancient religions work. They didn't have a lot of words. They didn't have a lot of sounds. English is different. English English is different because in the early Middle Ages they were hyper aware of how few words they had. And so like words like of, which means father, it's spelled with two letters, the aleph, an ox head, and bet, a house or tent. And so the pictures are an ox plus a house. And so to any nomadic family, the ox represented strength, power, and the primary leader of the herd. The house was the domestic sphere. So when you add them together, the visual representation reads as the strength of the house or the bull of the house. And that would have been significant to them because for 2000 plus years before that, the bull of the house was the king. And so the democratization of the king, the father of any individual family being a king and any individual house being a castle, that began around 1800 BCE as Egypt was breaking apart and democratizing. And so that's how acrostics and gematria and their specific style of mysticism, that's where Kabbalah and the Bible code come from, is syncretistic and circumstantial, just accidental combinations of these letters creating different things than the original intention of the language. That's how they thought that God gave them this language because it's giving them secondary communications in the written code, secondary and tertiary communications because the pictures, the letters that they developed out of the Phoenician alphabet, which was developed while Phoenicians and Canaanites and Semitics broadly, so the people that would eventually speak and identify with the Hebrew language, um, these people did spend time, hundreds, maybe even thousands of years in Egypt, some of them, thousands of years, definitely hundreds of years. Um, and so the Exodus happened for sure. There was an Exodus. Was it Moses? Almost certainly not. Was it the 40 years in the desert and magic numbers and manna from heaven? Almost certainly not. Almost certainly not. But being able to find food on the ground in the desert and being able to find water because you know how to break rocks, these are skill sets that humans have. And so if the Hebrew people developed them because of a cultural memory, because of their ancient relationship with this God, then yeah, that only makes sense as a metaphor because they can only speak about this stuff in metaphors. They don't have a lot of words. I'm doing great, Hunter. How are you? That's what I thought. The King's lists were first being compiled in Mesopotamia in this same time period, 2100 to 1800, 1900. So at the same time that the Hebrew people, well, the same time period that the later Iron Age Hebrew people are looking back on their histories, the places that they have left, Egypt and Babylon, had already compiled long kings lists. So they needed, if they were going to be a state, if they were going to be an official state religion sponsored by the Persian Empire coming out of exile, they had to have thousands of years of genealogies to establish a now late Iron Age kingdom. They were actually establishing and they were actually establishing an entirely outdated model of government when they came back and founded the kingdom of Judah as it wants to exist today. Yep. The list of names establishes authority, but the story establishes an identity. And what they wanted was to establish an identity. Like, one of my Patreon supporters today was asking me if the evolution of religion is out of a sort of what would Jesus do? I don't have to think about my choices. And I said, absolutely. Religion, organized religions as we have inherited them from the 5th millennium BCE, are explicitly about giving you a decision-making apparatus that allows you to not have to think about your moment to moment. If you can get to your day without thinking, then the religion has done its job. And that's why I reject them. I can do my thinking. Thank you. Atheism is a religion, by the way. It's a binding to a central tenet, to a core of central tenets. If there are atheist books that you use to underscore the why that you believe what you do, that's called dogma and doctrine. If there are practice things that you have to say, like, oh, it must have been the spaghetti monster, that's a religion. You can play it up in irony and fantasy and, oh, we're just playing around, but so did the first pharaohs. They thought their wives were just being silly and that it would work for propaganda to keep them from getting assassinated. And it did have that secondary effect, but it also had the primary effect of separating out a class of human beings who were allowed to be murdered. And so long as we continue to set aside people in our civilization who are allowed to die, black people, in the United States are allowed to die. Black people are allowed to die in the UK and across Europe. So long as we set aside a population of people who are allowed to die, nothing will ever get better.
a little bit. Is that okay?
I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Thank you.
Yep.
You're afraid to tell me I have to walk like 2 blocks to go to the bathroom? Fuck you. Or
Damn.
fuck you.
Agreed. Oh, really? I should take a nap. I don't think I got a full 8 hours of sleep. But I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even gonna try to lie. Falling asleep live while I was playing Metaphor Refantasia. That was all right.
Yeah.
There was nobody in the chat, and the stream wasn't monetized or anything. There was nobody on Patreon. It was just me. But it was all right. I was playing a game, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get comfortable. And then I fell asleep, and then you woke me up like, hey, you coming to bed? And I was like, yeah. And then I kept waking up like, she's gonna actually wake me up, right? And then I woke up at 1 minute till. Right at. Lay there and see if you were gonna come, and the door opened. I was like, I'm up.
I come through.
Me too. We had a good time. I learned a lot listening to him talk. Whether he sees the world in a similar way that I do, or he describes it in similar words. Maybe he listens to me too much. I'm just listening to him, enjoying his game, but annoyed with the path that it's taken as it develops. And I'm like, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
That's why I've been talking about it all morning while I sit here, because talking to him, we solved the whole world, and he goes, okay, well, I don't know where else to take this, and I'm like, yeah, we've figured it out. Now what do we do about it? And then it becomes heavy. Like, okay, how do you fix it? If it takes 10 years to develop a game, how do you fix it?
Wow, this looks different.
Civ 6 is different. It's almost done.
What's almost done?
The pain inside my torso.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Me too. No more cheese.
No more cheese. No more pizza.
No more cheese. Ding dong, Mom. Thank you for being here, buddy. I'm going to go ahead and end this.